Thank you, as if by magic. Thank you very much indeed. So I just really wanted to say good morning to everybody and thank you very much indeed for joining us for the Dementia and the Workplace webinar. We are Platform Wellbeing. We're part of the Platform charity. So Platform works with people who are experiencing challenges in their mental health and with communities that want to create a greater sense of connection, ownership and well-being in the places they live and work. Part of the platform group are ourselves, Platform Wellbeing, and also EFRO. EFRO is a platform project that supports people living with dementia and working with each individual to help to find ways they can lead a life centred around their interests and ambitions. Now, platform wellbeing is the training part. So we look at workplace wellbeing, talking therapies, education wellbeing and supervision. There will be more information at the end regarding these if you wanted to understand how we could support yourselves. Some of the topics that we look at within the wellbeing arena are burnout, compassion and connection, what is a mentally healthy organisation, and then we provide tools to make sense of it all. So there is, as I said, burnout, anxiety, self-care, professional boundaries. But today we are focusing on EFRO and the dementia support part of platform. And I'd like to introduce you to Rhiann Pitt, who is the training officer for EFRO and can probably do a lot better at introducing that project part of platform. And over to you, Rhiann.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Yes, so as Mary said, this session is called Dementia and the Workplace. And in a moment, I'll let you know just a little bit about why we developed this session. But as Mary said, I work for a project called EFRO, and we sit under Platform Mental Health Charity. And we're a small dementia project. And we have a couple of arms to the project. So I'll just tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do first. So we work with people living with dementia directly to help them to continue leading fulfilling lives. We work mostly with people to mild to moderate dementia. We do one-to-one support. We ask people every 3 months, what are your hobbies? What are your goals? Do you have any goals you'd like to achieve? Would you like to take up any new hobbies? Would you like to pursue any old hobbies? And we work with them to help fulfill that. We also run groups in the community as well. So, as you'll learn in our full workshop, if you do it, dementia is not, it's progressive, but it's not overnight. So, we work a lot with the idea that if you work with people's mental and physical well-being, engaging, enabling, empowering, and allowing enjoyment, as it says on the left-hand side, you can actually help stave off the effects of dementia. It's a great non-medicalized approach. So pictured here is Anita. She decided to take up beekeeping. We have an allotment in Cardiff. And then you've got Tim and Steve down at our allotment there as well. But we've had people, it might be pottery, painting, cycling, golf. We've had people going rock climbing before, trying to see as many castles as they can, whatever it is that people are interested in. So we also offer training and support for anyone from healthcare professionals to unpaid carers, to people who work in communities, to small businesses, to large businesses, community group volunteers as well. Anyone who may interact with someone living with dementia who wants to empower themselves to do it the best that they can, we can offer them support with that. And it's all based on the same principles that we work with when we work with people with a diagnosis, looking at the whole person and promoting their well-being. So that's a little bit about our project. Today's session then, why we developed it is we were hearing some negative experiences from the people that we worked with who received a diagnosis while they were in the workplace. So we put out the feelers. We got a large response from other people as well. And then on the other side, we spoke to employers, we spoke to HR who felt sort of disempowered and undereducated around the topic of dementia. So those things combined, we thought it be a good idea to put this session together. So it's not about saying people aren't doing the right thing. It's not a telling off at all. It's just helping to empower, inform, and educate people. So these images here, these are some of the people with lived experience who helped co-produce our full workshop. So this is a kind of taster session of a sort of 3-hour workshop that we've put together on this topic. These people here helped to co-produce it. So really this is their experience and their thoughts, their advice, and I am merely the messenger. So I hope I do them justice in telling their stories and their thoughts correctly. We've got a range of different jobs here. We've had NHS managers, university lecturers, one of them working for a sort of multi-million-dollar international company as well. So a real mix of roles that they were in when they got their diagnosis, and a real mix of support that they got as well. So why is it an important issue? Why are we even talking about it? There are currently nearly 71,000 people under the age of 65 with a dementia diagnosis. So this, and I've noticed in the chat box, some of you do have connections to the dementia world and work in this field. So I don't want to patronize you, but just to, start at base level, um, this is what we would class as young onset dementia. It is rising, and there are a lot of people living with young onset dementia who don't yet have a diagnosis as well. So we've got the people of working age under 65 with dementia, but also people are remaining in the workforce longer. Many reasons. We're living longer, the retirement age keeps rising, unfortunately. And the cost of living crisis as well is keeping people in the workplace. So with these factors, you also have many older people still in the workforce. In 2023, there were 1.5 million people over 65 still in work. And if we consider that 1 in 11 over 65-year-olds have a diagnosis, you can see that the older people get, the more common dementia is. It's not to say everybody will get it, but the combination of this, moving forward into the future, we're going to have more people in the workforce with a diagnosis, more people in the workforce with dementia, but not yet a diagnosis. And as well, a lot of people in the workforce who will be caring for somebody with dementia, which has its own set of things with it. But we won't really be touching on that in this session as well. The other factor is that there's much more awareness now around dementia, so more and more people are seeking a diagnosis, whereas before they may not have. So if we look at the kind of financial side of this, thinking about the cost for businesses, these figures are only for England. I know most of you are in Wales, but I could only find the figures for England. The cost of dementia-related retirement in 2019 was £1 billion, which is going to double by 2040. And the estimated cost of people leaving the workforce to care for someone living with dementia, they're estimating will be 4.6 billion by 2030, 6.3 billion by 2040. So when we think of it from a financial point of view as well, this is really relevant to businesses. So it's two things here really. It's, can we support people living with dementia to stay in the workforce if they want to? And can we, within a workplace, promote risk factors as well and help support people in that to try and prevent dementia? That's only, we can't eliminate dementia, we can't stop it, but there are a few risk factors that we can be mindful of. So it's important that we keep people in the workforce if they want to for businesses, but it's also important for the individual with the diagnosis as well. If you think about why a workplace is important for people, what does it give us? A workplace gives us routine, a sense of purpose, social interactions in most workplaces, not all, mental stimulation, independence, financial stability, and for some people, their job is what gives them their sense of status or recognition as well. Um, so, what happens when you take that away? Let's say that somebody in your workplace gets a dementia diagnosis, and then it's sort of decided that they can't do that job any longer and they need to leave. Losing all of those things for the individual can be incredibly detrimental, not only for, like it would be for anybody to lose a job, but in terms of the dementia, if people are not getting the same social interactions, the same mental stimulation, it can actually perpetuate the sort of symptoms of dementia and it can progress quicker. We saw that in COVID, people who were isolated, staying at home a lot, um, dementia symptoms increased quicker than they would have done had they have been living their kind of normal, in inverted commas, lives. Um, so that you've probably heard the expression use it or lose it. We all have these neural pathways that we've built over time. And as soon as we stop exercising those pathways, there's the potential for them to shut down. Um, of course, it depends on the type of dementia as well, but for some people, having that sense of purpose and that routine and that familiarity of a workplace is also very comforting and a good anchor point for people. We have found that some people we've worked with in later stages of dementia, um, sort of, if they are living in an earlier time of their life, often they might be living in their work role. um, we have an example as a gentleman who used to be a glazer, and he would stand in the care home he was in, just sort of touching the windows all day because he was so drawn to that. That's what he was used to, and the care home staff gave him a roll of blue tack, and he would just spend all day kind of pressing the blue tack as if it was putty into the windows, and that gave him a really great sense of purpose and achievement in the day. So our job roles are more important than we can sometimes realize. So, in terms of working aged people, the impacts of getting a dementia diagnosis um, are, in most cases, very different to an older person who has retired. Um, Firstly, the type of dementia people get and the symptoms they get is often different to somebody who is older. Symptoms can be mistaken for other things: menopause, stress, things going on at home, depression, and therefore there's often a later diagnosis as well. Many people of working age will have significant financial commitments, for example, a mortgage, car leases, or lots of different outgoings. They may have children to care for. They may still have dependent parents as well, who they may be caring for. Their lives tend to be more active. Again, not always, but often if you were kind of in your 40s or 50s compared to in your 80s, you've got a very different lifestyle. They may feel robbed of more of their life, and navigating the benefit system may be more difficult as well. And in the full length workshop, we go into a bit more detail about the sort of impact of that, getting an early pension, that kind of thing. So we asked a huge group of people with lived experience, not just the photos I showed you earlier. We asked a large group of people with lived experience of dementia in the workplace what was positive about their experience and also what could have made it better. I've sort of summarized their responses into 5 categories, which I'll show you now, and we'll just touch on each of them briefly, but in the full workshop, we go into much more detail on them. So, more education and awareness, strengths-based working, and I'll explain that in a moment, a person-centered approach, empathy, and a focus on workplace culture. So, in terms of more education and awareness, it, it it can help support the individual. So the more education or knowledge or information that employers, HR departments, occupational health, and the general workforce, the colleagues who will be sitting around this person, the more education and awareness they have, the more they will be able to support the individual. It's very difficult to, if you may have personal experience of dementia, maybe a relative had dementia, but it's very hard to take one example and then apply that to different people because dementia affects everybody very, very differently. So there's a lot to understand about dementia. As an employer, as someone in HR, to be able to support the individual. Some people, in terms of it could encourage someone to get a diagnosis, we had stories where people were living alone. Um, and so actually their work colleagues were the people that they were communicating with on a day-to-day basis. So it was actually the work colleagues that noticed changes in them. And if a workforce was more empowered and had more knowledge around dementia, they may be able to encourage that person to go and get a diagnosis earlier. The sooner people get a diagnosis, the sooner they can start with medication or looking at other things, getting support in place. So it's really important to get a diagnosis as early as possible. The other thing is in you know in if everybody understood about the potential modifiable risk factors of dementia as well, although these only um, play a small part in the sort of possibility of getting dementia, they are still identified as risk factors. So the more people understand about those, you're actually working with the along the route of prevention as well. So, what can workplaces do to support staff in terms of strengths-based working? This is our second one. Um, People don't change overnight. Once you get a dementia diagnosis, it doesn't mean you're immediately incapable of doing your job. Um, and so it's thinking about how what that progression might look like and looking at where are they now? Where are they this week, this month? What what are the symptoms? What are their strengths? It's also considering the role of medication. Once people get a diagnosis, they may then be offered medication. There's no cure for dementia, but you may be able to get medication to help with some of the symptoms. If somebody begins taking medication for some of their symptoms, then elements of their dementia will improve in the short term. So actually, it's looking at that as well and not thinking of it all as a complete downward progression. There's going to be good days and bad days. And then it's focusing on what have they got, not what have they lost. And in our full workshop, we've got a lovely example of a gentleman called John, who was a white goods engineer, and his employers did a brilliant job of really looking at what he still had and um, helping him to stay in the workforce by doing that. So then the third topic that um, people highlighted was the idea of a person-centered approach. So many workplaces don't have a specific dementia policy. Um, it often gets scooped up under mental health or anxiety, but this can actually be very detrimental because it's really not the same as them. Um, some places may have a dementia policy, but it's possible that it might be too rigid or not actually that helpful if it's applied to individuals in very different circumstances. Um, there's sort of famous line of if you've met one person living with dementia, you've met one person living with dementia. So considering that rather than a more rigid policy, in our full workshop, we talk about what a person centered approach might look like and how you can adapt it to fit individual needs. We talk about reasonable adjustments, which is the very sort of standard thing that gets looked at. And we talk about what this might look like, what reasonable adjustments might look like as well. Um, so yes, people I worked with thought policy sounded a bit too rigid. So it became person-centered approach. If you do have a good policy in your workplace or you know of a place that does, please do let us know because I'm desperate to find a great example of one and I am yet to do so. So please do let us know. Um, so there's a quote here from one of the gentlemen who contributed to this session, and he said, "It's important that everyone we associate with is aware of what is going on and that our behavior, though seeming to be just as it used to be, may sometimes turn in unexpected directions, and our speech and language may occasionally appear to be inappropriate." So again, this comes back to the idea of understanding being sort of key to supporting people. We have been told examples of where people have been accused of being drunk or being on drugs before. There's a real misconception around what some of the symptoms of dementia are and can look like. Um, so that kind of leads us on to this idea of empathy. So um, we're not saying that you wouldn't be empathetic. I don't want to imply that you are not pathetic people. But I just want to show you a few examples of what people have experienced before so that you can understand what some people face. Um, these people are like you and me, and getting a dementia diagnosis can be extremely stressful itself without any other factors like, negotiating with work. Um, for their well-being, it's empathy is vital. If someone had a diagnosis of a different disease, for example, someone came with a cancer diagnosis, there 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 is more often than not an incredibly empathic response, and we were not hearing that with the people that we spoke to. Another quote from Peter: "Our failing memory does not immediately mean an inability to think logically or make us immune to being hurt by thoughtlessness, disrespect, or insult." And I'm just going to show you some quotes that have happened to real humans with feelings and emotions who just happen to have dementia. I'll read them in case you can't see. "I wouldn't trust you with my 3-year-old niece, so why would I trust you with a multi-million-dollar contract? My employer asked me to tell my colleagues, and one of them ripped the kettle out of my hand. Half an hour after I told them my diagnosis, I was asked to leave. I worked for the NHS for 20 years, and then I was just gone. I ended up having to go through the court of law to get my pension. The dementia was stressful enough without having to stand up in court. They were demanding why I couldn't work as if I was making it up." So as I said, that's some people's experiences, and I am sure that none of you would say anything like that, but just as to give you an understanding of what some people are going through. So the final topic then was about workplace culture. There's a lot of fear and stigma around dementia still. And in the full workshop, we discuss how you can create a safe and understanding environment for people to feel supported after a diagnosis. Um, it's likely, depending on the size of your workplace, that at least one person has a personal connection with dementia, whether that is caring for someone, knowing somebody with dementia, or getting a diagnosis themselves. So we also discuss how you can promote more discussion around dementia, um, in terms of prevention and the future sort of health of your colleagues as well. So in terms of the full workshops, they're complimentary. We've got two booked in online at the moment. Wednesday the 22nd of January, Tuesday the 25th of March. Um, there's a QR code there, or you can go to the Platform Wellbeing Eventbrite page. You can sign up. We encourage you to this is for everybody really in a workplace, because it's at some point it may be relevant for everybody, but very specifically for frontline managers, HR, occupational health. Um, if you have people, we can also come and deliver in-house as well. Um, and that's it from me. So there's a few details there if you wanted to get in touch. As I said, we run lots of free online sessions for health and social care professionals, as well as unpaid family members and carers. Um, so we have an Eventbrite page. Have a look. That's it from me. Does anybody have any questions? I haven't looked in the chat box. Do I need to see anything, Mary?
No, there's lots of chat, but no questions there
Okay.
at the moment, Rianne. Thank you very much. Kaylee's been popping quite a bit of information in there, so thank you very much for that, Kaylee. I've got one question, Rianne, if that's okay. So
Yeah.
you've got those two sessions booked for January and for March.
Hmm.
If an organisation wanted to reach out to you and wanted you to actually go into their place and deliver for their staff, because sometimes you'd have that shared experience, you'd also be able to discuss things that are specific to that organisation. Is
Yeah.
that something that you could do?
Yes, definitely, definitely. So even if there's a small number within a workplace, as long, if we'd be very happy to do an in-house session, because then you could actually open up a real discussion about your own policy and whether you have one, and work together to sort of think about where you want to go forward with that. So yeah, be very happy to offer any in-house sessions.
Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions?
Got one more observation, Rianne, if it's okay.
Yeah.
But there is one that's come through for Kaylee, and I will address that in a moment, Kaylee. Is that you said you're finding it difficult to find that golden policy at the moment.
Mm.
Is it a huge challenge for organisations then, in your experience of people you've spoken to get this right, or to actually tackle it in the first place?
In terms of a sort of a policy, you
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah. So, um, yes, I think largely people feel they don't have enough knowledge to be able to create an appropriate policy. So people don't feel supported and don't really know where to access that. Hence why creating the session. Um, so yeah, yeah, I think that uh, I've lost my train of thought, sorry.
It's challenging, then I think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, I think it is challenging, and people don't really know where to go. And I've included in the full workshop, there's a snippet from the ACAS website, 'cause that's often where people go to get information, and there's really no information on there. So HR and managers are kind of shrugging their shoulders and not really knowing I think it's not that they don't want to have a policy, they just maybe A, haven't thought about it, or B, um, don't have the information to be able to do that. Hence this session.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Do have a couple of questions that have come through now, Rianne. One from Kaylee Phillips. Noticed that the slides all had data for England. Is there anything available for Wales?
I'm struggling to find it, Kaylee. I have the most information I found was for England. I am struggling to get the same statistics or the equivalent statistics for Wales. Some of the statistics were for England and Wales, but particularly the cost to businesses, I could only find the English figures. I'm sorry, but I thought it gave a good idea of where we were at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've got one here now from Daisy Cole. You spoke about risk factors. Some of these can be quite profound, such as hearing loss. Does the
Yes.
training cover these areas as well-being
Yes.
is deeply impacted by the social isolation?
Yes, so we go through the Lancet report, which identifies 14 potential modifiable risk factors to dementia. And then in the full workshop, we open up discussions around how workplaces can actually support that, e.g., giving free hearing tests, and same with vision loss as well. So we've got some signposting in there. For example, Specsavers do a corporate package where they give eye tests and hearing tests to workplaces. It as a package. So there's we look at all of those risk factors, and then we discuss how workplaces can help to um, reduce those risk factors. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've just seen Kaylee's comments. I agree, Kaylee. I'll keep digging and I'll keep looking and I'll update it if I can find some.
Okay, anybody else have anything they'd like to contribute today?
Daisy just said raised the issue with Welsh Government 4 years ago. I'm assuming, do you mean about the hearing loss? That
Gosh, that's a
yeah,
long time.
it's yeah, it's something that we're definitely pushing in the full workshop, but trying to do it from a if the business, ideas for the business to do in terms of their workplaces.
So if anybody else is interested in more information with respect to EFRO and the support that the team do within the dementia arena, please, by all means, reach out to Rianne or myself. I can pass that information on. Platform Wellbeing looks at the strengths-based approach to person-centric training, not necessarily around dementia specifically, but in all walks of anything training where you are dealing with service users. We are very, very much advocates of the strengths-based model. So if you wanted any information with respect to platform wellbeing as well and how we could support organisations with respect to training, we provide workplace being strategies, we bespoke training around mental health, crisis intervention and counselling. So if anything has resonated with anybody today, please reach out. We're more than happy to have a chat and to give you some information with respect to how we can add value to where you are at the moment. But thank you so much for those that contributed in the chat. There's me.
Um, there's Daisy. I've just seen Daisy's
Mhm.
question. We touch on carers in the training. So we have a number of sessions aimed at carers, things such as communication and dementia, reminiscence, working with reminiscence at home. But in terms of carers in the workplace, we touch on that in the full workshop, but we think that needs a whole separate workshop of its own. So we'll try and put something together based around that.
And we're always interested in your feedback. So if anybody has got 2 minutes just to complete a very quick feedback on our webinar, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you, Rachel. Pop that in chat as well. So unless anybody else has anything they'd like to contribute, then I shall call that to a close. And thank you very much to everybody. Thank you so much to Rian for that introduction into, because it is a lot less than the full training. I'm aware of that. But as I said, if anybody wants more information, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, is it